When we think about America's power, we picture missiles, tanks, guns. But the most powerful weapon is the dollar. It's a silent, invisible weapon that can be used against almost every person at any time and any place. But over the last few years, it has become far less invisible. Let me take you to February 26th, 2022 at 5:13 p.m., when the United States imposed sanctions on Russia in an attempt to deter their war with Ukraine. Now, on the surface, it might have just seemed like any other set of sanctions, but this time was different. When the US had enacted sanctions before, freezing foreign assets held in American central banks, for the first time, the US froze assets held in Russian central banks. Now, imagine the difference between someone who owes you money refusing to give it back to you, which is bad enough, versus someone coming into your savings account, into your home, and taking your life savings from you. That's what this was. But then the US took it even a step further, right? Getting global buy-in to then use the profits off of those sanctions, if they could, to then fund Ukraine. And whether or not you agree with this, that precise moment will likely go down as a pivotal turning point in the collapse of the dollar, accelerating the shift away because people for the first time really knew without a doubt that holding dollar reserves was a risk, not a safeguard. But here's the difference. What's going on now, what once was just frustration, is turning into action. Which brings us to number 3, geopolitical alliances. Now again, make no mistake, this move to push away from the dollar, it's not new. It's been simmering for decades because countries have long wanted a more balanced financial system. Who can blame them? But this is where we have BRICS. An alliance, of course, led by Russia and China, joined by nations like India, South Africa, and others, spearheading a global rebellion against the dollar to remove the threat of economic weaponization that has long loomed over them to create a more equitable global economy. But as long as the dollar is still king, they will never be free, which is why they are already trading in local currencies, developing independent payment systems, and leveraging their vast commodity resources to steadily reduce reliance on the dollar. Now, Uncle Jim might say, I don't know, they've been talking about this forever. Nothing has happened yet. And while yes, it's true that it wasn't an overnight upheaval of the dollar, I'm sure the way that maybe some would have liked, this is like a boulder rolling down the hill. It starts small, but it starts gaining momentum, and at a certain point, you cannot stop it, and that's what's going on. Of course, the BRICS membership has now grown to 10 nations with over 30 applications. But it's not just the number of members that's important, it's of course what they represent, such as the UAE and Iran, both key crude oil producers. Now, this is pivotal because, of course, since the 1970s, the foundation of the dollar's global dominance has relied on the petrodollar, or an agreement that oil be traded almost exclusively in dollars. But that has created a relentless demand for the currency. But if cracks are forming, which they are, remember February 26, 2022 at 5:13 p.m., Russia, one of the largest oil exporters, who borders with China, one of the largest oil importers, well, now you have the UAE and Iran trading in other currencies, and even Saudi Arabia, the crown jewel of the petrodollar system, cozying up with BRICS. So, I mean, again, someone might say, well, they still need the dollar. But do not be fooled. Do you not think that they realize that the deal they made in 1970 compared to today, that the dollar is not worth what it once was? That if there was a better agreement available, that they would remain loyal? No. And this brings us to the last argument Uncle Jim, God love him, might make. He'll say, okay, I'm with you so far. But if there was a different currency, maybe this would be different. There isn't an alternative viable currency. The dollar is it. It's the only one. And on the surface, he's right. Tell him that. Give him a win. Say you're right. There is no other economy like the United States. The dollar is deeply ingrained in the financial global system, and the liquidity is unmatched. But here's the catch. That argument is stuck in the past because it does not take into account new tools that are changing the global finance today, which brings us to advancements in technology. The same way that the internet changed how we do business forever, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are giving countries a revolutionary way to bypass the dollar entirely. These digital currencies allow nations to settle cross-border payments directly without relying on US-controlled payment systems like SWIFT. And again, this isn't hypothetical, it's already happening. So for those still clinging to the idea that there's no viable alternative to the dollar, it's outdated. Because I firmly believe the future of global trade doesn't require a single settlement currency. We could be living in a multipolar currency system or a system where no single currency dominates. Countries could be trading in multiple currencies. And while the US's global sway has stalled progress on recent initiatives by these countries to create new payment systems, the infrastructure is there. There is no going back. The same way that digital downloads came along in the 2000s and the entertainment industry tried to stop it and say, no, 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 no. The idea of direct downloads was unstoppable for people, right? People found a way, and the industry had to adapt. That's what's going on here. And this shift isn't happening in a vacuum. The rise of these technological advancements, BRICS, the US's unsustainable debt, these aren't isolated events. They're interconnected, creating this process, and together they are chipping away at the dollar's dominance. And this isn't just about the dollar either. It's a larger global shift. We are entering what many are calling the dawn of a commodity supercycle. For decades, the world has relied on financial speculation and the manipulation of fiat currencies. But as trust in fiat currencies fade, commodities like wheat, oil, gold, silver, they are reclaiming their place as the bedrock of real value. If we look at commodities compared to equities over time, there's a clear historical pattern. I'm going to blow this up so we can see this a little bit better. Periods where tangible assets surged in value while overvalued financial markets declined. And then there are periods like today where commodities are more undervalued compared to equities. And even more so today than during the dot-com bubble, signaling that the everything bubble that we all know we're in, the fallout is approaching. And this shift towards commodities is a major advantage for BRICS nations. Together, they control double the landmass of the G7 countries and quadruple the population at a time when declining birth rates for the West is going to be causing more economic stagnation. And this is how it ties directly to the dollar's collapse, because this isn't just an economic trend. It's a rejection of the speculative, debt-driven system that has propped up the dollar for decades. Nations are moving to secure their wealth in intrinsic, untouchable value. And you might have already been asking yourself, if central banks are moving away from the dollar, well, what are they moving into? And the answer is clear: gold. The asset that no fiat system can manipulate or print into oblivion. Let me put it this way: the dollar has been the global reserve currency officially for 81 years. How long has gold lasted? Outlasted empires, currencies, all economic crisis. It's no coincidence that central banks around the world are stockpiling gold at a record level, because they know what's coming. In the inevitable currency reset, gold will be the foundation of the future. In fact, in a recent survey of central banks, it showed that 69% plan to hold more gold over the next 5 years. But what about the dollar? When asked the same question about the dollar, only 63%, actually 63% said lower, that they would hold less dollars. And when asked why, the top two reasons were clear: inflation and geopolitical instability. The fact of the matter is, the process of de-dollarization is here to stay, whether we like it or not. As countries continue to hold the dollar less, the US will be forced to print more, meaning the dollar will continue to lose value, and the purchasing power of cash erodes. They're rewriting the rules of the game now, and those who are unprepared for this shift won't know what happened until it's too late. Which is why I personally have made it my mission to help empower others to understand complex financial topics so we can all learn and grow together, us, your friends, your family, maybe even my Uncle Jim. Because the threat of the dollar's collapse is inevitable, but it's not inevitable that we face it unprepared. By understanding this shift and taking action now, you too can protect yourself, because this isn't just financial education, it's financial self-defense.